Mandy. Hey there. K-Dukes. K-Dukes. Okay, got you here. We can start now. Oh. Mandy, you need to smile. Just once. Once. A little. Come on. All right. Just want to make sure you know how. Got to do something to entertain ourselves while we await the arrival of your colleagues. Oh, here comes another one. Here comes Emma. Hello, Emma.
Hello.
All right, just a couple more to go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Teresa's in.
Hi.
Got just a couple more to go. A couple more minutes, then we'll get started. Otherwise, I got to say it twice once for that. Then you have to hear it twice. Ooh, here comes 2.
Hmm? Lesson has to have new material. And in addition to having new material, it also has to have some kind of activity for the students. And so there's a couple of ways of going about this. You may go out on the internet and find an activity or a lesson and an activity that you want to present. And I don't want you to just copy and paste it and call it done, but if you find something that you think is really good,
then you kind of go out there and modify it to meet your needs for your student group, whoever that student group is. On the other hand, you could go out there and you could start from scratch and build your own from the very beginning. It's kind of up to you. When you get into your teaching role later, I know that we all end up going out to the internet. We find activities, lessons and activities that we can use. And so we do that. My suggestion, and the thing that I think is very, very important for you to remember, and I talked about this on the first day, is when you're pulling those activities off of the internet, I'm holding you responsible for knowing that they are grammatically correct and that they actually work. I've talked to on a couple of occasions before saying there have been lots of people who've turned in exercises that they got from the internet that are just completely wrong or are largely wrong. They got 3 or 4 questions out of 10 that are just the wrong answers. So you need to do is you go out there and pull something out of a book or you pull something off of the internet is to make sure that it's correct. Okay. So as an example, this one isn't terribly incorrect, but I had a student go out and set up a lesson on first aid. And in this lesson, she got it from someplace that was in the UK. And one of the things they had in there was something called a plaster. She didn't know what a plaster was. None of my students knew what a plaster was, but it was essentially a Band-Aid or a bandage. They just use a different word in the UK. So when you're out there, I expect that you're going to put things into your lessons that you know and understand. You'll find lots of things that have misstatements in terms of grammatical errors. Not everything on the internet is correct. So what you choose, you need to make sure it is correct, or you need to correct it yourself in terms of the information that it presents and the activities that are required. Okay? So, Aisha, to make a long story short, you're able to go out there and you may find exercises and lessons that you're interested in. You can modify those and use them yourself, or you can start from scratch. If you are using somebody else's material, and that includes handouts and graphics and various things, you need to cite where you got it from. I am not a stickler on how you go about citing it. I just want you to remember to tell me where you got it. If that's a website, if it's a book, I don't need big full citations. I just want, for me, one, that you're letting me know that you got it from someplace else. And for you, number 2, is if you're going to use it 3 or 4 years from now, you may want to be able to go back out to that site and get the information. So you pull it from someplace else, cite it. Remember, it's got to be 5 lessons, and there's got to be new information and activities in each one. You'll find that there are, out on D2L, right under the instructions, there are some examples. And the first 2 example files that are out there are showing you 1 exercise out of 5. So don't use that and say, oh, that's what you showed me, so that's all I need to do. The first 2 only have 1 in it. If you go to the 3rd file, it's showing you more along the lines of what I want, because it'll have all 5 exercises in there. Now, as far as the topic goes, you'll see this on your assignment instructions. You're going to use exercises and lessons that are wrapped around any of the non-verb parts of speech. You could make 5 noun exercises, or you could make a noun, a preposition, a conjunction, an adjective, and an adverb, however you want to do it. You could set it up such that you're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday as a series of 5 things on the same topic. Just make sure you're giving new information and different kinds of activities each day. And the last thing I'll say on the activities is to make sure that you don't just give me a fill-in-the-blanks worksheet that each student is going to go off and do by themselves. Okay? Because that doesn't really engage engage the student. So I'm looking for something a bit more than a single fill in the blanks worksheet that they do alone. Sometimes they can do that by, well, thank you very much for that, Mr. Telephone. Anyway, so you can go out there and see the examples, and I lost my place when the phone started talking to me. Oh, so we were talking about any 5 lessons on non-verb parts of speech. Notice that in part 2, you're going to be doing 5 lessons on verbs. So stay away from the verbs on part 1 and recognize that that's what we're going to do on part 2 entirely. In addition to the examples on D2L, there's a small chapter about Thornberry reading. It kind of lays out how I'm generally looking for the lessons to look. Make sure you're clear on the instructions. If you see a difference between the example and your instructions, go with the instructions, because the lessons that I put out there are probably a couple of years old. So I might have changed the wording on something, but they'll give you a good indication of what I'm looking for, but just remember to review and go by your instructions. And the grading criteria for how I'm going to grade that is on the second page of the assignment instruction sheet. So I literally go through there and look to make sure that you've covered a number of different parts of the lesson for not very many points. And then I'm looking for your content to say it's correct, it's easy for people to understand how to do it. And in addition, you're going to have to give me some indication of how you're going to assess your students. But all of that is in the instructions. You can kind of go through it. You can see a couple of examples. And if you have questions, a couple of people have already had questions and gotten back to me. Please feel free to get back to me, phone, text, or office hours. And then remember that this is due next Monday, just before we have class.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Where's the rubric? Can you see it again, please?
Where's what?
The rubric for the portfolio one.
Page 2 of the instructions.
Content?
Yes, on the in the instruction sheet. There's 3 pages. The rubric is going to be on the second page. It says grading criteria for parts 1 and 2.
Content. Instructions. Yes.
Find it?
No.
Okay, hold on then. Let me jump in here. I'm going to bring up D2L. I'll show you right where it is. And let's see. I'm going to go here, here. Come on. And let's see. I'm in the sky, and I want to go to 310. Right here. Okay, so let me share the screen with you.
Thank you.
Share this, share it, and go into content,
Mm-hmm.
and you go into syllabus and project assignments.
Okay.
Open up the exercise instructions,
Oh, okay.
and it's on page 2.
Okay.
Okay? And that's where that is.
Thank you.
All right. The Thornberry text or reading that I talked about is right here. And the grammar portfolio exercises are right down here. Not the exercise, but the examples. Okay? All in there together. Are we good?
Yes.
Great. All right. So anyway, that's what we're doing at the moment for the part 1 of the portfolio. If you have questions, you know you can always get back to me. All right. Now, what I want to do is we normally do at this point. Let's see, did Michaela ever come in? Yep, she's there. Okay, got it. That's everybody this morning. All right, so let us go over to the workbook. We need to start with 2.38, which is on page 49. We've got some information on adjectives and adverbs. And I believe we also have something on conjunction. So let's start on page 49, 2.38. The first thing I want to point out here, if you're writing in your book, I want you to make sure you remember this. In exercise 2.38, it says under types of adjectives, it calls an article an adjective, and a possessive adjective an adjective, and a demonstrative adjective. As I pointed out to you before, these are determiners. They are not adjectives, despite what the book says. They are used differently than adjectives. They do have kind of a modifying impact on nouns, but they are very different. And so we'll go ahead and use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this exercise. But what I want you to remember is these 1, 2, and 3 are determiners, and determiners are not adjectives. So with that, any questions on 2.38? Did you find any sentences in here that seemed really weird? I did. Number 5. Look at number 5. What a lovely today it is. Does that sound like a reasonable sentence? You talk about a lovely today. I think that's kind of probably a misprint. It should be what a lovely day it is. But nonetheless, if you have no questions, I'm jumping to the next page. And in exercise 2.39, this one's one that generally gives people some trouble. And sometimes we could actually look at things and see 2 different sequences. What I want you to remember is that we typically don't want to waste a lot of time trying to teach this long sequence of adjectives to our English language learning students. The reason is we typically don't talk or write this way. You can, and sometimes you will see it, but it isn't enough of an issue really to waste a lot of student time on. Now, you would want to make sure that they realize that you can't say something like a red big balloon. For some reason, that just doesn't sound right to the native speaker's ear. A red big balloon sounds incorrect. It would really make more sense to say a big red balloon. And so there is a sequence that these things should go in. And it's pointed out to you so that you know that there is a rule behind it. But it's not something we would spend a lot of time trying to teach our students. With that in mind, did you have any questions on 2.39?
Can you see the order again?
Did I say the order?
See the order when you say the size?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hang on just a second. If you go to pages 62 and 63, it's going to tell you essentially that there is a sequence of adjectives. And let's see if I can find it on the page. Sequence 3 or 4 adjectives. A story sad. No, that's not what I'm looking for. 62 and 63. Don't they actually write it here? They didn't. So you know what I'm going to do? I've got a nice piece of paper that I'm going to send you that will talk to that information. Oh, here it is, down at the bottom of page 63. Opinion is the first one, then size. So a nice, big, old, round, red, Chinese Chinese, rubber balloon. Now, if you switch those around, they don't sound right to the native speaker. But once again, we typically don't spend a lot of time on that because your students really don't need to understand that. It'll be a long time before they really have to produce something like that. The shorter ones, like a red big balloon being incorrect, is typically enough. But bottom of page 63, 1 through 7 is that list. Any questions in there? Okay, let's see. In exercise 240, identifying and editing errors with adjectives.
Uh, 247
Number 7
or number 7.
in 240.
Oh. 4.
Which exercise are you talking about?
You said 240, right?
Right. And which one are you interested in?
Oh, you said number 7, right?
I don't know. What did you, I thought you were asking a question.
Oh, I think I'm fine with this.
You're fine with that? Okay. Any issues in this group? How about types of adjectives? Now, once again, this is where we hit that article, and possessives are really not articles. We'll call them that for this exercise, but they're not really adjectives. Anything in 241 or 242? 2.41?
I'm curious, is just for the sake of knowing, are these things you expect we would be teaching English learners, or is this more for us to know for a strong background? Does that question make sense?
I would say that it's probably more for a strong background, but the strong background is there to support you in your teaching.
Sure.
Right? And so as you look at some of these things, a student may come up to you, for instance, and say, you marked my paper wrong. This is a red big balloon. Well, the background knowledge that you have to have is there is some structure and rules to the way we order adjectives.
Right.
Would you necessarily sit down and teach them that list of 7? Probably not. But it's not a bad idea for you to know that there is a rule out there somewhere. It's not just because, it's because there's a rule that you can follow, and you need to be able to get out there and find those rules and look them up. But if you don't know that there's a rule, it's very easy to say, oh, that's an exception, or, oh, it just makes sense that way. But that doesn't work for your students.
I was thinking, just because like the first week I was looking a lot into like, you know, which one is possessive, which one is descriptive, and then I was just wondering if I was like missing the forest for the trees, like if I was going to end up like studying the wrong things. But
no, I don't think so. I don't know if I used this example. Did I use the old Jimmy's room example? You may remember that.
Oh,
I had a son named Jimmy, and my wife used to call the bedroom where he is 35, so he doesn't live here anymore. When we lived in our old house, she would call that old Jimmy's room.
Right.
When in fact, it wasn't because he was old, it was Jimmy's old room. And so it kind of gets, it's actually a misinterpretation when you say it incorrectly, and you do have to have some feel for the fact that possessives probably are going to come before a regular adjective when your students bring it to you.
Right.
Or produce it, and they will. I mean, they're going to make errors.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
So I would say that a lot of this, particularly up front here, is we're trying to make sure we build your background so that you've got something to draw from with your student.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. How about on 242? Point 43. So we've moved from adjectives to adverbs. What do adverbs do? Deshauna, what do adverbs do?
It tells the time of the verb, like,
Time?
well, like the place, the present.
Okay.
Of the,
Very good. Okay, so the place, oftentimes they will describe a place where something happens, right? So he died in the backyard. In the backyard would be acting kind of like an adjective. It's the dog on the porch. On the porch is saying where it is. So we're kind of crossing between prepositions and prepositional phrases used as adjectives are adverbs. What do adverbs do? Generally speaking, what do adverbs do?
They modify adjectives, verbs, or other adverbs.
You're right. Okay, yeah. So they're going to go out there and they're modifying or describing verbs like he ran quickly, or describing adjectives like very dark. So dark would be the adjective, very would be an adverb. And we can also say very quickly. So we've got an adverb describing another adverb. Now, in terms of some of the things they do, and you can go back to the PowerPoint, or not the PowerPoint, the mind map, but the big three tend to be the manner adverbs, how something was done, the frequency adverbs, how often it was done, and degree adverbs, to what extent it was done. You'll remember there are a number of other ones that are over in the mind map, but these are the three big ones that you've got to take into account. How something happened, when something happened, how often it happened, and to what extent it happened. Those are the real biggies for adverbs. How about questions? Anybody in 244? 245? And that kind of covers us for adjectives and adverbs. Make sure you pay attention to those. There will no doubt be some test questions that will have an adverb in there. Might be a misplaced adverb, might be a misused adverb or adjective. Those are the key things to be watching for. Now, we're going to jump over at this point. We're jumping over to the topic that was for this morning, and that was idea of conjunctions. What do you think is important for your students to know about conjunctions? What do conjunctions do first? Teresa, what do you think?
They connect two main ideas.
Okay, well, okay. Sometimes it's two main ideas. Sometimes it's just two things, right? We'll talk about that in a little bit, but they join things together in different kinds of relationships. What do you suppose is the most common conjunction? Emma? And, okay, great. And what does and, that's fine. And what does and do? What does that mean? And?
Combine.
Combine. Okay, great. So it's going to add one thing to another. So and add are very much the same. What do you suppose is the next big conjunction to deal with?
But.
But. What does but mean? Emma, what does but do? We said and is going to go out there and change something so that we're adding two things together. What does but do?
Does it have to do with phrases?
Have to do with what?
Well, I'm basing it off of the homework. Phrases.
It could,
Yeah,
and we could join complete phrases. Well, what do you think but means? If and means add, but means?
It adds on more to a sentence.
Well, I don't know that it adds an on. It doesn't add it on the same way that and does. It does add a new idea. Kayla, what does but mean? How would you explain to your student the difference between and but? gave you half of it. And is
Adding things,
adding things, and but is,
subtracting.
well, I would have wished it would have been that easy, but it isn't. But it's subtracting's probably not the best way we could do it. More like contrast.
Comparing.
Huh? What did you say?
Never mind.
Kayla, go ahead.
I just say comparing.
Comparing, yes, and comparing, but actually with the contrast, right? It's kind of a negative comparison almost. I like this, but I don't like that, perhaps. And so we saw in there, we've got the 7 conjunctions or 7 coordinating conjunctions. Who remembers what the acronym is for those? Oh, somebody has to know.
Fanboy.
And boy.
Fanboys, exactly. What's the F? No. 4. Now, interestingly, when we have 4 as a coordinating conjunction, we very seldom use that. We very seldom use 4 as a coordinating conjunction in speech, because 4, in that case, usually means what? See, you don't write it, you don't say it very often. It's kind of like because. I am going there for I need to buy some eggs. We just don't use that for very often. We also don't use nor or yet very much, but we do use and we use or, we use but, and we use so. Those are the ones that we typically use a lot. What do you suppose it's important to get your students to recognize when we're looking at these conjunctions? It's very important for them to begin to understand the difference in the meaning from this word to that. It's very easy for them to go in there and use or when they need but, particularly for English language learners. And so it becomes very important for them to recognize, hey, this is addition, and this is contrast, and this is one or the other, but not both. And this is not this, and it is also not this for nor. It's very important to get them to start understanding the meaning behind those words. And they're very small words, so they're going to think, oh, this is very easy, but it isn't. It takes a good bit of practice to use them correctly. Anybody got any questions on 2.46?
Yeah, I have a difficulty figuring out what is like a subject and what's not, and just
Okay.
I don't think I got any of these right, to be perfectly frank.
So let's pick one out that you want to talk about.
Let's say 3. I said it was a clause because both of them had they.
That's a pretty good approach. It's a good approach. They is not going to really be enough, but both of them have they, so that's true. And they both also, and that is the subject. They would have come to his birthday party if they had not been out of town. So we have a subject, they, in both cases. What else do we have? What do you need to have to make a sentence? You have to have a subject and
a verb?
And a verb. And so we did that. They would have come. There's the subject, they would have come would be the verb. On the other side of the if, they had not been, they is the subject and had not been is the verb. We're going to talk more about subjects and verbs within the next couple of weeks. Once we get past the verb section, we will start to do it. But basically, most of the time, you're going to look at something and go, if I can find what's happening, in this case, would have come. Who is doing that?
They.
They.
So it looked like every example had a verb, and I didn't know what. So can you pick one that has a phrase and explain why that is? Does that make sense?
Sure. Now, it's important to look at what is it that I am joining.
Right.
I could drink anything right now. So I, as a subject, could drink, would be a verb, anything right now. But a glass of water or orange juice is basically being added over to anything. Okay, so it's relating backwards. I'm trying to see if there isn't a better one. Here's a better one. Look at number 2. I looked under the bed and on the kitchen table. What is it joining? It's joining the phrase under the bed, because I looked under the bed, and it's joining that with on the kitchen table. If he had said, I looked under the bed and I looked on the kitchen table, then I would have had a subject and a verb twice, and those would have been clauses.
Okay. So under the bed, because they're both referencing I looked, so I looked is kind of like broken up.
Yeah, so if you look at the sentence, I looked, stop right there, and then where did he look? Under the bed and on the kitchen table. So what I'm really joining is under the bed and on the kitchen table, not 2 whole clauses.
Okay, thank you.
And this will get clearer when we get over. We'll talk about subjects, simple sentences, and compound and complex sentences a little bit later on. And that'll give you an opportunity to tune up your understanding of that.
Okay, thank you.
Others? Anything else on 246? The thing that they're trying to point out there is conjunctions join together things of equal, this is going to sound real technical, equal grammatical weight. When I say that, it means it joins words to other words. It joins phrases to other phrases. And sometimes it also joins complete clauses to other complete clauses. But they do not join a word to a clause or a phrase to a clause. They join 2 things of equal grammatical weight. And hopefully, if you don't recall that, that would have been in the mind map also. You might go back and listen to that part of the video again. Because it's not something we really ever noticed until somebody points it out. Let's go over to 247 if you're ready. Anybody want to stay at 246? No? 247. Coordinating conjunctions. What are the coordinating conjunctions? Fanboys. Right? What are subordinating conjunctions? What does subordinate mean? If you thought of the word, if you think of the noun subordinate, what does that make you think of?
Or underlings.
Under, yeah, okay, underlings. All right, so if we were talking about a noun subordinate, it would be somebody who works under somebody else. In the case where it's a verb, and it's kind of like using it as a verb here, to subordinate something says it's here and I'm going to push it down. Subordinating conjunctions will take one kind of an independent standalone clause and make it lower than a regular full sentence. Once again, we're going to get to that a little bit later as we study dependent and independent clauses. But just recognize subordinate means I'm pushing something down. And so what it really means is I'm pushing a full sentence down to be something less than a full sentence, so I can connect it to another full sentence. We'll get there though. And then correlative conjunctions, things like both and, either or, neither nor, they correlate, they're both together at the same time. 247, 248.
You can see example at most of them wrong. Because most of them are wrong.
Most of them wrong? Okay, so if we one,
She was a good student and, well, that'd be a correlate, coordinating conjunction. It's one of the fan.
Hmm. Yeah, what? Come on.
Suddenly, if I said, after I graduated from college, and that's the only thing I said, you would be sitting there waiting for me to come up with something to complete that thought. Okay? And so what it did was it took the complete sentence, I graduated from college, and it made it lower. It pushed it down so I could join it to the other sentence. And exactly the same thing happens down in number 5. If I look at the second part of that, is this town for years a perfectly good sentence. But if I put the word as there, it's no longer a complete sentence. It becomes a fragment. And it has to be connected to something else. Once again, I put the word as in, and it pushed, he had lived in his town for 3 years, down from being a sentence to being a clause. And that's kind of the thing you've got to go through as you work your way through these. Look at what it's doing. It's going to be a 1 if we're thinking of things like and, or, but, or,
How
and.
about
So,
the number?
Huh?
How about the number 8?
Number 8. Not only did he finish high school at 16, but also he was accepted to Yale. Notice that we've got 2 here, and they go together. Not only goes along with, but also. If you go back into the text, pages 66 or 67. Let's see. You've got explanations and examples on page 60, or 3 kinds of conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions are easy. There are 7 of them, boys. Subordinating conjunctions push a complete sentence down to be less than a sentence. And correlative conjunctions, which are down at the bottom, come in pairs. So you kind of want to go through these details, the explanations and the definitions, and examples on page 67. Okay? Find that, Rachel? Right.
Đâu lẽ.
Complete sentence. Once he gets home, it makes it an incomplete thought. And you're going to want to say, once he gets home, what? Finish the idea. So that would be a subordinating conjunction. Once again. Okay. right. So that's about 47.
Chào không lại. Come on. And usually, you relationship with a noun or pronoun.
Okay. So what kind of relationship? So you're absolutely right. It typically shows a relationship between a noun and some other part of the sentence. But what kind of relationships do you normally see?
Um,
Okay, so one of the relationships that Emma was talking about are location relationships. The dog is on the porch. It's tying the dog to the porch, right? So location is a good one. Another one that Kayla brought up is time. What are some of these that are time related?
Before and after.
Before and after, talk about in and on being location, but can in and on be something with time?
Yeah, you could say
chào không lại.
In 2021, but on Monday.
Would it be would Ian be like an estimate, like it's like in about 1 hour?
You could use it that way, certainly in about an hour. You could use it for an estimate forward. But here's the thing, and I'm I'm not trying to trick you, but I'm going, why in the world do we say in March, but on Saturday? It's always driven me crazy. Anyway, there is a rule. We saw it in the textbook. It basically talked about a guideline that said in is used in larger spheres than on. On is like on Saturday. In March is a bigger thing, and at 9 a.m. is even smaller. So the idea that I'm trying to get at is, as let's see, Emma said they show relationship between things. And as Kayla said, they may show location relationships. They can also show time relationships. And there are some additional ones. I want you to think back to when you were in grade school, okay? And I want to see if you had the same experience I did. When your teacher had to show you a chart that showed what prepositions are, can you think of anything that she or he showed you at that time? The one I remember from 7th grade was a picture of a mountain. And it had all kinds of these prepositions all over it. We had on the mountain. We had an arrow pointing to the mountain and an arrow pointing away from, up, above, under. So a lot of these location words are pretty easy to demonstrate. And those are probably the easier prepositions. Once you get past those easy ones, though, it's not always that easy. You're going to see that when you get into the preposition videos. And I want you to notice that how many of these are just little tiny words, a lot like a, and the. But they are extremely difficult words for your students to really learn how to use. And if you've ever studied a foreign language, you've probably run into the fact that prepositions are very hard to use. And so I want you to pay particular attention if we're in there on prepositions this week so that you can get a good handle on that. But what I want to do at this point is I would like you to take out or get a hold of that attachment that I gave you today that says midterm exam question practice. And just in case you didn't print it out, let me see if I don't have it available so I can show it. I got it right here. And so I'm looking at this page over here, midterm exam question practice. The reason that I'm showing you this now is I want you to start thinking in these terms as we go over looking at grammatical errors. Because I told you at the very beginning, the new problem for you is not using grammar correctly. You've had that issue since first grade, but it's now, even when you're able to use it correctly, trying to be able to explain it to students who don't understand it and who don't speak English as their native language. So as we get into the midterm, which I can't remember, I think it's in week 8. I probably give it to you in week 8. It's going to be a take-home test. And so the first part of that test, I want to make sure you're aware of what I'm looking for and what kind of questions are going to be there. So looking at the midterm exam question practice sheet, the one with the heading on it, the first part of the midterm is going to have 10 questions like this one, okay? 10. And so what I want you to pay attention to, listen carefully to how I score your answer. Out of the 10 questions, every question will have a grammatical error in it. A lot like some of the things you've been seeing in your workbook, a grammatical error. And for each one of those, you have to go in there and find the error and tell me what it is. That's worth a half a point. You have to fix that error. That's a half a point. But then you have to thoroughly explain it to your English language learner student. And that is worth 2 points. So recognize that 2/3 of this part of the test is that you can explain why. And 1/3 is that you can find the error and you can fix the error. Finding and fixing is easy. Explaining is hard. So, a lot of the exercises that you've done in the workbook have used goofy little answers addressed to you, not to an English language learner, but addressed to you, that says things like, don't forget to use an S, or don't use an, is, or are with the wrong subject. That's great for you. You're English speakers. You're getting ready to be teachers. But those are not good enough for the test. You have to be a little more specific on what it is that is wrong. What kind of dog is that? Is it a Pekingese? No.
No, it's a Shih Tzu mix.
All right, very good. You always have to worry about saying Shih Tzu. Wait for your mom to come up and smack on the head. Anyway, so going back here, those are not appropriate answers. Don't forget to use S. Okay? Now we're going to practice these. Go ahead, Rachel.
I'm a little unclear with the explanation. This is the subject-verb agreement error. The correct from the verb to be.
Well, that is the example, yes. The example would be a subject error, subject-verb agreement error, right? So the way you would correct, she are one of the good students. Are is the wrong word, so scratch it out. How do you fix it? She is one of the good students. And so what are you going to use for an explanation? Well, this is a subject-verb agreement error. The correct form of the verb to be in the present for a subject like he, she, or it is going to be is. That was my explanation. But what I want you to recognize is I made that explanation in 2 sentences. So you don't have to write a paragraph or 2 to explain what's wrong. Almost always you can do it in probably 2 sentences, sometimes 1, but usually 2, maybe 3 sentences will explain thoroughly enough for your student. In this case, it's subject-verb agreement. That's error. That's sentence number 1, and the correct form of the verb is blah 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 blah. That's question or sentence 2. Now, here's one that we're going to do together. I want you to sit here and write down the sentence. If you've got a notepad, write down, I have a confidence in her advice. I have a confidence in her advice. And then I want you to mark the error. Don't say it out loud, just mark the error. And fix the error. And then we can stop. So you're going to go in there and show me where the error is, and then you're going to tell me how to fix it. On just this one, I have a confidence in her advice. Who wants to tell me the answer on that one? Aisha, you got it? You're looking at me. Ah, man. Aisha, not you, huh? Okay. Let's see. Ariel, I'm just working my way down the list. If Ariel doesn't do it, Deshara is up next. Ariel, what's wrong with this sentence?
I have a confidence in her. It should say I have confidence in her.
Okay, so you answered the first 2 questions. One, the error is it has a there, right?
Yes.
It shouldn't. The way to fix it is I have confidence in her device. I'm sorry, in her advice. So you hit both of those on both of those first 2 questions. You've now scored 1 point out of 3. Deshara, I'm turning to you for the other 2 points. How do you explain the error here?
So basically, putting the A, that's a part of an article which she doesn't, well, what they don't need in the sentence.
Right. But why doesn't she need it? There's a specific reason why that A doesn't belong there. Not sure?
No, I'm not sure.
Rachel, you're the next person on the list. Why should A not be there?
Because confidence is an abstract noun.
Exactly. And so if you look at that and you go, confidence, I can't really see, touch, smell, hear confidence. It's an abstract noun. And typically, you don't put an A with abstract noun. So the answer here is A shouldn't be there. The correction is I have confidence in her advice. And the answer that you would give and probably get away with just a single sentence is we do not use articles with abstract nouns. Okay? That's the way that would go.
The issue that is in the right to be on, right?
In her advice, what I'm sorry?
Confidence correspondent to on, right?
Confidence corresponds to what?
I have confidence on our advice. I don't know.
Oh, calm? Sometimes it could be calm, but not always. Confidence is more a matter of trust.
No,
So if you have confidence, you typically trust something.
she said confidence on her advice.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not confidence on. No, you would normally have confidence in. Sorry, didn't hear it. Thank you. Hey.
Yep.
I have a confidence in her advice. We usually have confidence in. There's no good reason. It sounds to me like confidence on her advice should be good, but it's typically, it is not correct. The way we would use it is confidence in. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I am about to jump in and let you go to page 2. I got, let's see, I've got 12 people, and I'm one of them, so we got 11. So let me make 4 rooms. I'll make them 4 and create them automatically. And I am going to give you 7 minutes. And what I want you to do during that 7 minutes is go in and take these 2 sentences on the second page, write down what is wrong, how to fix it, and then come up with an explanation that's 1 or 2, 3 sentences at the most that talks about why what they have there is wrong. Okay? And I'm going to open the rooms. You're going in for 7 minutes, and then we'll come back and talk about this is just to give you practice for this part of the test that's coming up in a few weeks. I'll see you in a few.
Hello.
Well, he said 2 things in each.
Right.
Because I only found the first one. Let's go to the movie on Saturday night instead of at Saturday night.
Yeah, it should be the other one. Did he say true? I think he wants us to first say what's wrong with it and then explain. I don't think it's true for each. I think it's just we would respond with 2 different.
The 2 things that's wrong with it.
Right. The error and then. So instead of at, it would be on.
Okay.
With P3, I think with usually should be reversed. She dances, wait, she usually dances and usually should be reversed. She usually.
Yeah, that's not usually dancing Derek.
So, the P3 would be misplaced with adverbs, like what we were doing on our homework. I like a big example from, you can see probably, from 53 in the workbook. Misplaced adverb.
Okay, I see. I didn't really understand that page.
It's confusing. Um, I'm gonna look in the book and see if it's gonna get, like, page 64 and 65 in our book have, like, they explain more about adverbs. Like, I know misplacement of adverbs, I just don't know how to explain it.
Okay, so 3 is misplacement of adverb. Because the example gives, I like very much to school. Okay.
What are adverbs? And, because usually it's an adverb of frequency. In general, adverbs of frequency come before me. Oh, so that's it. Usually should come before dances, which is the main verb. So that would be the reasoning. Like
Okay.
the formal explanation, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Well, what kind of a noun is Saturday? Because I think that's why it has to be on and not at Saturday night for Tuesday.
Is this one kind of the preposition one for this one?
I would say that a proper noun.
Oh, yeah.
Well, common noun. I don't know.
Okay, sounds good.
Or maybe it's a common noun. It's not referring to a specific person or something. I don't know.
I mean, we don't know, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's
See you.
okay. Okay, so
Somebody was having so much fun, they were laughing. I heard them when they got here. Who was laughing? Well, I'm just glad that you're all having so much fun. That's the goal. So let's take a look at these. One of these is real easy. The other one maybe not quite so easy. Let's see. Looking at P2, which stands for practice 2. Let's see. What is wrong with this one? Let's see. Which picture do I see? K dudes. K on this P2. What is wrong? What is the error?
the error is at.
Yes, okay, I agree with that. It's at. How would you fix it?
Let's go to the movies on Saturday night.
Okay, on Saturday night. Okay, that's great. Now, what I want you to do is, let's see, I'll jump to somebody else. You did so well, I won't take the chance of messing up. Let's see. Who do we have? Mandy, I haven't heard from you today. So we said at is wrong and we should put on in there. What would you tell your student is the reason?
In the group we were discussing that maybe the word Saturday might be some maybe either a proper or common noun.
That's true, but we're more interested in the time. You're right, Saturday, we could call it proper noun, that's true. But why would that make a difference for at versus on, Teresa?
We were stuck on this one.
Okay. Well, this is going to be one of the ones that you're going to be looking at shortly. It'll be the stuff that we're doing for Wednesday. So this will pique your interest and get you ready, get your appetite wet for preposition. But you'll find, anybody want to tell me? Somebody might know. Rachel, do you know?
I guess it's on Saturday at 9, so we choose the one close to the preparation. So put on.
Well, that might be true, but I don't think that's not a very important reason for the student. Here's the real simple. It's pretty simple. On. It's on Saturday night. When we are talking about a point in time in a day, in a particular day, when it's a time in a particular day, we usually say on. Right? So in this case, we would say, let's go to the movies on Saturday or on Monday. But when would we use at? Kayla, how would we change this sentence to make it be, let's go to the movies
At 5 o'clock.
At 5 o'clock. So the issue is really pretty simple. It's just hard to explain. On we use for days. At we use for a point in time. In, we use for months and years and centuries. You'll see all of this as you go through the stuff for prepositions today and tomorrow. Now, here's the harder one, but you've had this one. She dances usually with Derek. She dances usually with Derek. What's the error, Aiden?
Sorry, took me a sec. We said that the error is improper order of the adverb, and that the adverb should go before the verb.
Why?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Well, see, I know I can answer the question.
I do not know.
That's all right. That's a correct answer. However, what you should do is, how would you go find this out? If this were really the test question, what kind of a word is usually?
Usually is an adverb.
What kind of an adverb is it? Manner, frequency.
A frequency.
Frequency. So where would you go? I mean, you just read about this probably late last week.
I would probably scramble to the book myself, or
Yeah.
Google it if I were really feeling feisty. But
I would probably go to the book, probably, because most of the stuff I give you will have be answered in the book. Although you could go to the internet, but in this case, why is that out of order? Well, if you went over and you looked on page 65, you see adverbs, and you looked for adverbs of frequency, it tells you right there it's a common ESL error involves placement of these adverbs in a sentence. In general, adverbs of frequency come before main verbs. There's the answer. So
it doesn't really say why, does it?
Sure.
Main verb.
It says that the adverb should come before the main verb when it's an adverb of frequency.
Oh, so other adverbs don't have that same.
Correct. In other cases, an adverb of manner would typically come after it, like he ran quickly. Not always. You could say he quickly ran, but it's also he ran quickly. So in that particular case, quickly would come after the verb, but it depends on the type of adverb. But my plan for you here is you go in there, you go, all right, I know it's an adverb and it seems like it sounds wrong. Where do I go? Go back and look at the stuff about adverbs, either by going into the index and finding adverbs, and then go over there. The answer's right there in one page. Actually, it's right there in one paragraph, but it's easy to find. And so, as I mentioned once before, I'm not always worried that you're able to remember all of this stuff. You'll remember it more and more the more you use it. But what I am interested in is making sure that you know that there's probably a reason and you've got a way to go look it up. I mentioned this book because it's a good one, but you can also go out there and do the same thing. I'm sure if we went into the internet and said, where does an adverb of frequency go? I bet you would take you right to 10 sources on the first page that says it goes before the main verb. And then you'd have your answer. Okay? That's what I want you to start thinking about. I want you to start looking at things this way, because as you prepare to be teachers, that's going to be the issue facing you. And I did a bad.
Name on and at one more time, please.
I'm sorry?
On and at.
On and at. Oh, we use on when we talk about a day, like on Saturday or on Monday. And we use at when we're talking about a very specific time, like at 9 o'clock or at noon. But we wouldn't use at with the day, typically. And watch it in the preposition videos that you're going to be watching over the next couple of days. That information will be right there.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going down with the ship. Anybody want to leave? You're free to leave. I'm sitting here to answer questions. Teresa was waving by. Not, hey, I've got a question. Emma's waving by. Not want to ask any questions.
I actually have a question.
Oh, okay, cool. What's up?
I just for the midterm, will you tell us specifically what types of questions, like verb, adjectives would be on there? Or it would be basically everything we have covered?
It'll be everything you have covered. This is the first section, and there will be 10 errors that you will have encountered the rules for in your reading. Then there's another section that is going to have about 5 sentences, and you'll be picking out subjects and objects and predicates and various things like that. There will be 5 of those questions. And then there's 3 essay questions, 2 of which are pretty short, and the last one, which is kind of long, but I think they'll be easy for you to understand when we get there.
Will it be timed?
Nope. It's going to be a take-home test. It'll be timed. You have 1 week.
Okay.
Now, here's the secret. Don't wait until the last day. I had a person, I don't think I told you this story. I had a person a couple of years ago, absolutely brilliant, just doing everything right in the class. 100%, 100%, 100%. And then she took the test, and it was due on Tuesday at 2 o'clock or something like that. She started it on Tuesday morning. She ended up with 25% on the exam. So it takes a while because you want to be able to look at it, see it, understand it, perhaps look up the answer. And it just takes longer. If it was only going to be something that took an hour, I'd do it in class, but just make it early.
Do you have time limit?
Nope. 1 week.
Oh,
You have 1 week.
okay.
Minus 59 minutes, actually. It's 167 hours and 1 minute.
Okay.
Other questions?
So when we turn it in, how is it going to be? Like, are we just like recording the?
In this particular case, you'll have it probably on a Word document to be able to type your answers right into the document.
Oh, okay.
So this one is going to be require you to type it up. You could type it right there. You can type it up separately, either one. But then once you've got it typed, change it into a PDF and put it on D2L. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
What else? More questions?
What's the format for the lesson plans?
The format for the lesson plan is shown in the examples on D2L and explained on the instruction sheet.
Oh, okay.
It should be typed. Other questions?
Go back to the written exam. If we cannot type, can we print out and write?
I don't know. Don't you can't type?
Just some homework the professor gave cannot type.
All right. Well, but I have to be able to read it real clearly. So I guess if you want to write it out, you could.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good week.
You too. See you Wednesday.
Oh, no. You won't see me Wednesday unless you come to my office hours.
Oh, Wednesday, no. Oh, okay.
We're meeting on Mondays only for a few weeks, and then we'll get back to meeting both days at the end.
Oh, that's why I didn't say you last Wednesday.
Right. So if you look on the syllabus, there's a column on the outline that says F to F, which means face to face like this. And then there's OFS, which stands for offsite.
I heard